Jeff here at StopThePirates.blogspot.com. It's Monday, the 12th of June, 2017. So, talking about a United States citizen scam, and that's a pretty provocative title, but get your attention, I guess. But then you have to realize that all of our governments are corporations and are responsible for the creation of about 800,000 laws called statutes. Statutes and codes and statutes. Everything's illegal in the United States, believe it or not. Driving a car is illegal. Selling your house is illegal. Selling cars for a living is illegal. Fishing is illegal. Getting married is definitely illegal. You don't want to do that without a license. So a license, what is a license? A license is permission from the king, the sovereign, to do something that would otherwise be considered to be illegal. But it's all commerce. It all comes down to the commercial aspect of it, and these are all commercial laws that have a monetary value attached to them. Because we are bonded, debt slaves, on the tax plantation here, we're worth money to these corporations. They farm us, we do work for them, and we produce replacement slaves for them. So anyway, these 800,000 statutes and codes, which are designed to control the people of America, just like the king, these statutes cannot be enforced against the source of the law, which are the living, breathing, flesh and blood sovereign people, you and me. So what they do, anyway, all of the agents in power, beginning with the king, the Vatican, the Founding Fathers, and now all the presumed public officials, wanted to obtain power and control over America, and the Constitution pretty much prohibited them from achieving those ends. So they began to devise ways to change the sovereign Americans into corporate fictions, which is what they did. It's your name in all capital letters. That's your U.S. citizen, not you. I guess you could be, there weren't really any U.S. citizens until like briefly after the Civil War. Up until that point, you were a citizen of the state you lived in, and you did have actual rights. You could actually own your property because you paid for everything, all your goods and services with gold or silver, which gives you the allodial title to the property. But now everything is put into a trust, and we're just basically trading the right to use these items. Anything you register with the government or the state becomes their property. That's why if you don't pay your car insurance or your vehicle registration or your property taxes, they'll foreclose on your house. They'll steal your car. It's their car. You're just an employee, and you donate all that to them when you register it. You registrate. Regis being the king, and you submit and apply. I mean, presumably they understand you know what you're doing. You're submitting to their will, and then you're applying. Anyway, these agents also decided, and the reason that they cannot educate the masses without exposing their treachery, and so our private and public education must be controlled. Without any real constitutional basis, the U.S. Department of Education was created. Man, if you want to get into a deep rabbit hole, start researching how the U.S. public school system. It was Charlotte Iserby wrote the book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And it is. It was a way that they had, during the Industrial Revolution, they had to get people off the farms and used to the fact of working in a fucking factory for 12, 15 hours a day and not complain about it. And through slow indoctrination, through this Pavlovian, a bell ringing every hour, you don't really learn anything. It's just, you don't really learn any critical thinking skills. I just read an article about that the other day. Critical thinking skills, and with college-educated people, is down like 40%. They just blindly believe what they're being taught in these indoctrination centers. And it's mostly just social engineering. They're telling you what to think about this and that, about that, and the government, and but it's just all United Nations Agenda 2030 the depopulation agenda. They want to break up the family, turn all the women into lesbians, the men into like beta, whatever. I don't even know what men are anymore. Talk to half of them. It's all, yeah, I don't want to get into it. The Constitution made it the responsibility of each state to educate people, and several states challenged the Congress and the courts. The matter was eventually heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, which has never been a constitutional Article III court from its inception. It's which I can explain. The Supreme Court ruled that the federal government was entitled to oversee the educational requirements of the U.S. citizens by virtue of their constitutional powers to regulate commerce. So no matter how you turn the paper, and that the ruling gave the federal government the green light to initiate its brainwashing process on the American public. There was you can look this up online, there's it's like an 8th grade test that you had to pass in like 1860 something. And I read that, and then they give it to like, doctorate educated PhDs, and they could not do this test, which was for an 8th grader, where they really taught you how to, do math and critical thinking and composition skills, and you get none of that today. It's just all social engineering to indoctrinate you into this world, to have fun and get a job and pay your taxes. Because that's ultimately what you're there for. Because they take out bonds when you're born on the amount of money that you're going to pay into the Internal Revenue Service, and you owe that money. I think it's like $250,000 per head now. You owe that money, and believe it or not, you're actually worth more dead than alive. I think that's why there's so many baby boomers retiring now, and it's costing the corporations so much money to send out their checks every month that they paid into over their lifetime. And they would rather just, keep them dumbed down. Everybody's afraid. Older generation people are afraid to even walk out of their houses nowadays and walk down the street in their own block. They're just scared out of their fucking minds. And it's sad. And then we're all eating GMO food, breathing the chemtrails, fluoride and other contaminants in the water, and everybody's dying of cancer, which is how they want it. So the courts arrived at the ruling because these are not ignorant men. And on every form you file to receive government benefits, and even the voter registration form, there is a question that asks, are you a U.S. citizen? Yes or no? Well, why would they ask you that? Because legally you have to sign under penalty of perjury that you are this entity, or you're responsible, you're the holder in due course for this entity, this all caps fictional name, and you're the fiduciary, and you're going to pay its bills. So you answer yes, right? And you're coming into the country from Mexico. I remember they always ask me, citizenship. I go, I'm from California. They go, no. The definition of a U.S. citizen in a reputable law dictionary will discover that the United States citizen is a phrase designed to identify a corporate fiction. So it's pretty clever how they do it. You and every other American, and basically had no idea that you were admitting that you were a corporate fiction when you circled the yes answer, and you did it under penalty of perjury. So the sovereign states had been abolished in 1790 by the adoption of Article 1 of the Statutes at Large, which converted all of the sovereign states into federal districts and gave the federal government lawful jurisdiction everywhere. In consideration of the fact that the federal government is a corporation and that the corporations can lawfully own other corporations, and all American subjects to be educated have admitted under penalty of perjury that they are corporations, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the corporate federal government. That's how fucking sneaky these lawyers are, man. It's interesting, too. The courts can overturn any, presidential directive, which kind of lets you know who's in charge. the bar, which stands for the British Accredited Registry or Regency, which operates out of the Temple Bar in the inner city of London, which all of the Lawyers Guild. They're basically there to oversee the bankruptcy of the corporation, which is bankrupt. And so they make all of these statutes and codes, and just, at any given time, they can come around and round you up and probably find something that you're doing illegally. And of course, they flood the plantation with, all the illicit drugs and whatever you want to keep you not looking at what they're doing to you. And you see people out here protesting and things, and like, what's funny to me is they're like trying to be the counterculture now, with the so-called leftists or whatever. I'm apolitical. I don't even, but because I see it for what it is. It's just a con game. It's literally a con game, and it's a cult. And if you get involved in the minutia, they're just sucking you into their cult. You'll never get anywhere by protesting or anything like that. So anyway, you got these leftists who are now basically going along with the establishment, and they're trying to act like they're the counterculture, which is funny. And I don't think you can be both at the same time, people. So they're doing the establishment's bidding at the same time they think they're the counterculture. Pretty funny.
I mean, that just shows how the public school mindfuck operation is what a success it is. As people can't even see that, which is right in front of their face. I don't know, God bless them, go out and protest, I don't care.
Anyway, find out, this and more information like this at stopthepirates.blogspot.com. Like, share, and subscribe if you want, and thanks for listening.